All right, so we've gone over the forms and stuff. Now with boots on the ground, what do we look for? There's an installation plan. The contractor's described what tooling he's going to bring to the site or she's going to bring to the site. Now it's time to go verify. So how do you verify? We've seen the checklist now, but now how do you actually make it happen? So pre-construction, they've said what they're going to bring, so now it's time to go out and verify that they're on the ground and they're on the site per the approved installation plan. We want to identify, is there anything listed that's not there? Core barrels, augers, clean-out buckets, pumps, air lifts, air compressors, all the list goes on and on. So now's the time to actually look for it and identify it. Is the equipment in good condition? We'll get to that. Some pictures of that. Make an inventory of the drill tool. So go down, take pictures, write everything down, everything that's on site. You ought to be familiar with that tool and make sure you have an inventory of that tool. And note that more tools can show up as the job goes on and on. So this isn't a once and done thing. This could be a living document. Check the dimensions, particularly the tools and the casing. Okay. All right. Typical installation plan will list the equipment. So for instance, the drill rig, this is St. Croix. Case was using a crane mounted rig. They tell you what the crane is going to be with the Series 2 drill attachment, the Caldwell drill attachment you can see. And so you can, all these little things that you guys know about to make sure that they're not pulling a fast one. Vibratory hammer, boom on the crane, welding machines, all the earth augers, buckets and whatnot. So now's your time to make an inventory. So things to look at with respect to the casing installation, make sure they got all the tooling, not only to drill a hole in the rock socket, but to get the casing in the ground. The slurry equipment with the polymer unit, there's going to be, you'll need to make sure that the right amount of baker tanks are there, so they got the volume the storage volume to handle their slurry operation, desanding equipment. All this stuff should be spelled out in an installation plan and a slurry management plan. Spoils containment, so do they have everything in place? Spoils barge when they're in the river, how are they going to get rid of the cuttings at Pier 1 when they're not in the river? Is there going to be enough plastic or visqueen on the ground to make sure the slurry or the cuttings don't fall into the river? Clean out equipment, all this stuff that trimmies, are they watertight? Do they have pigs? And all the equipment for testing and monitoring. All right, so one example, when you're looking at the equipment, it's laying on the ground or maybe it's up in the air like this Kelly. If you look at it, you can see the Kelly bar is bent. Well, imagine what's going to happen with a bent Kelly bar, especially with an auger. Of course, it's going to wander all around. If we don't get a nice uniform hole, when you put the cage in the ground, after our final clean out and acceptance, by the way, that cage is going to scrape down the sides and pull a bunch of junk into the hole. We don't want that to happen. So things like that, keep an eye out for conditions that could negatively impact the safety or the quality. Like John said, and David has said too, take pictures, they're cheap. It's not like we got to develop them all. They're digital files now, so just take a bunch of them. I like having a separate camera, like a digital camera where I can put a timestamp on them. So when I go back in time after seeing dozens of job sites a year and hundreds of drilled shafts go in, sometimes one auger looks like the same, looks like the next auger. So I like having a timestamp and a date. So all of these tools are different types of tools, different dimensions. They could be the same type of tool but different diameter. Remember at Red Wing, we've only got 7 shafts, but in those 7 shafts you got 4 different diameters. Okay, you got 10, 9.5, 9, 8.5, and I suspect, just like at St. Croix, they will bring in smaller diameter tools as well to drill pilot holes. So it may not go in with a full 10-foot diameter bite or 9.5-foot diameter bite. They may drill a 4-foot diameter pilot hole, then ream it out to 6 feet, then ream it out to 8 feet. I don't know. So there could be an awful lot of tooling on the ground. So make an inventory of it, take pictures of it. Simple enough just to run a tape measure across it to look at the diameter, record the diameter of different tools. You saw Don's bucket on the first slide. Put your name on it if you want to, just to identify what you've measured. The casing will come out generally stamped. That's not always the case. Sometimes, especially for temporary casing, that could be casing that's been used on lots of other jobs, and that doesn't last very well in the rigors of warfare. But you can see the dimensions. casing wall thickness, diameter, length. It's ASTM grade 52. Here's, I don't know if that's my hand or maybe David's hand, taking a picture of the wall thickness of the casing, making sure it's got ears. If it's going to be twisted in, this can all be coming out of the installation plan. Contractor says, I plan to twist the casing to seat it into rock, but the casing doesn't have ears for the Kelly bar to attach. Well, you know you got a problem before it's a problem. This sounds elementary, but I have seen it be a problem, not knowing the casing length before it's in the ground. If you don't have a good measurement of the length, when it's sitting on the bank, that's the only time you're going to get a chance to really measure it. Once it goes in the ground, you don't really know. You won't ever be able to find out again what that casing length is. So check it while it's on the ground. Ad nauseum for the forms. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on the forms. So pre-construction, we want to verify the conformity to the approved installation plan. We spent a lot of time on the installation plan. Now let's make sure that they're living to it. Bent Kelly bars, casing's the wrong wall thickness, not long enough. All these potential problems, we can identify them early. Let's identify them before they become a problem. That's probably a good rule of thumb for any conflict avoidance. Collect the information, lots of photos, tape measure photos, keep them in your notes. All this can become very important later. As John said, this becomes the only living record of what happened at site. And so pictures tell a lot of information, give a lot of information.